Imagine, if you will, being accused of a crime and the entire jury is picked exclusively by the prosecution. It is made up of people who already voted to convict you before any evidence was even sought. Do you really think those jurors are going to honestly review the evidence? Or are they going to sift through and find what supports the conclusion they've already drawn? As more and more evidence finally comes to light about what really happened on January 6th and the clown show that followed it, it's time America turns the microscope back onto the Select Committee and their manipulation of all of it. Rosie the Riveter here, dropping more truth bombs to destroy fake news and propaganda. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to get new videos when they are uploaded. Now, let's get into today's riveting topic. How many of you know that the January 6th Select Committee was made up entirely of people picked by Nancy Pelosi? She unceremoniously rejected Kevin McCarthy's choices for the committee, selecting instead members who had already voted to impeach Trump, including the two Republicans. Would you accept those conditions if it was you? Would you have reservations concerning their findings? Would you question their impartiality? I guarantee you would. However, we're supposed to vilify President Trump for doubting their results and believe it means he's an insurrectionist, a felon, and a dictator. The committee issued a plethora of subpoenas, from Trump's advisors to White House staff to Trump's own children, ordering witnesses to testify for public meetings. I actually don't have an issue with private hearings, as it is a logical and necessary measure when dealing with possible confidential and classified information. Committees can and have arranged for follow-up public hearings when desired and needed, with the knowledge some areas must be avoided. Two of Trump's advisors, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, invoked executive privilege and refused to testify. In an unusual response, the committee had them arrested. Both men were found guilty in D.C. courts, talk about partisan juries, though both are appealing their cases. Interestingly, the same people who applauded all this also supported Hunter Biden for rejecting his subpoena to testify privately, even though they demanded Trump's children do it. They also tried to protect Hunter when the House committee started contempt procedures, despite cheering the convictions of Bannon and Navarro. I will say the term select committee is appropriate for this group, as they are highly selective on what videos, evidence, and interviews they allowed the public to see, purposely hiding, ignoring, and in some cases, outright lying about the evidence and witnesses that didn't support their narrative. In other cases, they actually manipulated the evidence to design the narrative they wanted presented, instead of the truth. For example, in January of 2022, Liz Cheney told NBC that they finally got first-hand testimony that Ivanka Trump employed her father twice to put an end to the riots, though Liz didn't say who provided that information to her. Headlines were written to give the impression Ivanka and other staff were begging President Trump to intervene to stop the rioting, but he refused to do it. With this nugget, the committee subpoenaed Ivanka, who privately testified in April of 2022 for 8 hours. By the time the committee released their written report following their official televised proceedings, I'm sure they were confident the people would just accept their results without investigating any further or doing their own research, still holding to the narrative that Ivanka begged her dad to address the nation and he pushed back the whole way. In fact, they were counting on it. I know. Doing your own research is now a bad thing according to the media.
That they can do their own research.
Don't do any of your own research.
Doing your own research is associated with conspiracy theory circles.
This go-it-alone approach, doing your own research, that can have serious consequences.
You should get prison time for even questioning the vaccines.
Can we all stop saying, I need to do my own research?
That phrase, do your own research, 4 words. 4 little words that are hurting America.
Doing your own research hurts America!
Everybody has a supercomputer in their hand that empowers them to do their own research, and that's the problem.
You must not do your own research.
I need to do my own research.
I don't understand what that means. I'm doing my own research.
You can't do your own research unless you're a scientist. Do your own research.
I guess I'm a dangerous rebel patriot like my ancestors as I sought out Ivanka's testimony transcript. Sifting through the over 200 pages of tedious and repetitive questions, it's frustrating and telling what testimony the committee did not use in their official report. For the sake of time, I'm going to stick to the one issue of Ivanka's interaction with her father and his social media posts to the protesters. Here's what Liz got right in her interview. Yes, Ivanka immediately found her dad after seeing what was happening on TV. Yes, she did say something needed to be sent out right away. However, Ivanka testified those present in the dining room immediately started composing a message and posted it within minutes, completely going against the narrative purposely set before her testimony.
I advocated for him issuing a statement immediately, and we started talking about what the words of the statement should be. Like I believe I said, it wouldn't have been longer than a few minutes, maybe 5 at the outside, from the time I learned of the violence to when he actually drafted the statement. He issued a statement shortly after I entered the dining room. We talked about how it was important to put out a forceful statement, and he issued one within minutes. When I entered the dining room, it was really with one goal, to suggest that there be a forceful statement put out. The president did not push back on that suggestion. As I have testified, within minutes, he actually issued one. He concurred with the need to issue a statement. I was there. He drafted it. He sent it.
Questioned whether she thought Trump felt the sense of urgency she did, Ivanka replied yes, adding it was even possible he was already working on a tweet before she even entered the room, but she was not sure of all the time frames of events. When asked about Trump's second tweet, Ivanka admitted she returned to suggest another one be done, which again was immediately complied to. So there was no begging and there was no resistance on Trump's part either, as Liz claims was reported. Liz told NBC several times Trump was one room away from the press room, and she was confused as to why Trump wouldn't just go on camera and address the nation. But if you think about it, how likely was it the protesters were going to see a TV broadcast while at the Capitol? When asked, Ivanka rightfully suggested they all knew her father typically communicated with supporters directly through social media. It was logically the fastest way to reach the protesters. So they concluded a personal post from Trump would make a more direct effect. And it did.
We're going to pull up the tweet. Donald Trump has asked everybody to go home. Donald Trump, quote, I am asking for everyone in the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect our law enforcement, and men and women in blue. No. Pull up the video. There's a video. Yeah, he has a video. He just tweeted it.
In addition to the 2 tweets I just discussed, Trump posted another one which had been taken down, which NBC included, well, kind of. In typical mainstream media fashion, they left out the most important part of the tweet. You know, the part that goes against their narrative. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. Finally, Trump composed, recorded, and posted a video at 4:17 p.m. that Newsweek reported was tagged within minutes and removed from YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook within hours, along with several other posts. Days later, Twitter removed Trump's entire account, as did other social media platforms. When Elon Musk restored his account in November of 2022, those deleted tweets were still missing, So it took us rebel researchers to dig and expose that NBC edited the tweet. Yes, media, doing our own research is dangerous, isn't it? Another interesting statement from a questioner during Ivanka's testimony caught my eye. They stated, "I'm going to ask you over the course of this about some of the reporting that has been done about these events in the months since." The person then referred to a book by journalists Carol Leonig and Philip Rugger. The title alone tells you it is not an unbiased, objective book, yet it is being used as the basis of this person's concept of the day's events, including Ivanka's interactions with her father. Liz Cheney also referred to news reports when claiming Ivanka begged her father to intervene, as well as citing the media when inferring Kash Patel and other senior officials' text messages were apparently not available for their review. But was that really true? There's a reason politicians base so much on media reporting. I'll let Nancy Pelosi explain why.
And it's a diversionary tactic. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
Get that, patriots? The deep state leaks dis and misinformation to the media, who reports it as news, usually from anonymous sources. Then the deep state uses those reports as the basis for their accusations and calls for investigations. It's a huge propaganda machine, folks. The committee wasn't actually investigating and going where the evidence led them. It is becoming apparent the committee and the media had a conclusion, and they kept asking questions, then cherry-picking testimony and evidence until they could find something they could use to fit the ending they wanted, a Trump indictment. An investigation is supposed to be impartial. This was a tyrannical prosecution cooked up by the deep state and served by the media, with dessert supplied by Hollywood. When preparing their multiple televised hearings of their findings during the summer of 2022, the committee hired Hollywood producers to run the productions. My friends, this was literally nothing more than a propaganda-laced show trial, purposely broadcast in the months leading up to the midterms, and they didn't even hide it. A just-released PBS documentary highlights key players, including the other committee Republican, Adam Kinzinger, admitting the summer trials were about persuading people to watch, giving them a good show. So hopefully they would reject Republicans in the upcoming election. Did you see how the media framed Ivanka's testimony, stating she gave them what they needed? What do you mean, what they needed? As Intelligencer put it, in some ways, the fact that Ivanka testified at all was more important than what she said, and the committee knew this. It wanted to make the hearings blockbuster TV and began teasing Ivanka and Jared Kushner's testimony days before the first televised hearing. The committee carefully and meticulously selected the clips of testimony they showed of Ivanka and other witnesses, not for context, but clickbait. Snippets from Ivanka's testimony were replayed often during subsequent hearings, even when they didn't provide much context or new detail. Ivanka is as A-list as the Trump team gets, and the committee members were wise to see that White House senior advisor Eric Hirschman's panda painting couldn't carry the show on its own. The committee also stated in the report that Ivanka Trump was not as forthcoming as White House counsel Pat Cipollone and others about President Trump's conduct. They reported during the show trials that witnesses claimed Ivanka was visibly upset as she couldn't get her father to rein in his supporters. Since her own testimony did not agree with that, she was apparently not forthcoming, which may explain why transcripts were withheld from being released until December 22nd, well after the 2022 midterms. Get it yet? It will be interesting to see how they frame Hunter Biden when he pleads the fifth over and over again during his hearing. Additional public hearings of some of the hundreds of witnesses would have been quite helpful, but the only ones afforded that privilege were people like Cassidy Hutchinson, who received a heartwarming embrace from Liz Cheney following her interview. Not only was Miss Hutchinson's testimony totally debunked within 24 hours by Secret Service, a House committee is calling her back to Capitol Hill to explain making significant and crucial changes to her testimony 3 months later. Something, as far as I know, the J6 committee totally ignored. With the release of the January 6 videos starting in early 2023, we now have proof that the committee not only ignored, it suppressed the evidence of police removing barriers to allow protesters up to the Capitol. Someone purposely opening the magnetically sealed doors so protesters could enter. Police smiling as protesters peacefully walked the halls, escorting them to certain areas and throwing flash bombs into non-rioting crowds, just as a starter. The committee chose to carefully hand-select and cherry-pick what video clips were used and showed to the public. Out of 44,000 hours of tape, they released, an hour, 2 hours to the public? And people find that acceptable? Wake up, America. This was a well-coordinated, well-thought-out effort to not only take down Trump, but to destroy his supporters. Target every mom, pop, grandma, and veteran who dared to just be in Washington, D.C. that day. Publicly indict them for insurrection without actually charging anyone with insurrection, including Trump. Convict every MAGA American for domestic terrorism, and then virtually bury them with the Patriot Act, permanently destroying the opposition once and for all. But it's all done to save America from the fascist Trump, right? I'm sure some of you are thinking I'm just a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist. Well, if I am, and if everything they did was 100% above board, and all evidence they collected was so damning against Trump and the protesters, why did they delete terabytes of evidence days before the GOP took over the House? Can anyone give me a reasonable, rational explanation as to why they would do that? If they had all the goods against Trump, why in the world would they get rid of a good chunk of it illegally? I wonder if we'll find those apparently unavailable and missing text messages Liz told us about. Anyone else wondering who really got rid of them and why? There was an insurrection on January 6th, Patriots, but it was not by the sitting president. It was against the sitting president. Think about it. Trump was still in office. He would have been leading an insurrection against himself. The cover-up always gets you, folks, and we're uncovering a lot. Therefore, for the good of the country and to restore our constitutional republic, it's time these self-proclaimed preservers of democracy were subpoenaed and answer some very important questions under oath that we, the people, have for them, both privately and publicly. The American people deserve the truth. I'm Rosie the Riveter, and that's my 2 cents. But what do you think? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my work on Patreon. You can find all my videos and my blog Liberating Letters at thefaxpaper.com. You can also start your own research on the Fax Paper by exploring the thousands of links to articles I have, including those noted in my videos, sharing the truth fake news propagandists won't. Investigate and discover the truth for yourself.